Hello, KinYooBiCon, and welcome to our panel Pokemon Snap, a video trash post on the past and future of the Pokemon Snap franchise. My name is Mac,
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Clayton.
and together we are the foundation for the preservation of Gen 1 Pokemon. You can follow us on Twitter at 5th Gen Not PKMN. We are also on YouTube, where we upload this and many other panels, and Twitch, where we make videos that are just Survivor, but with anime characters. Anyway, for us to talk about Pokemon Snap and everything that it's done for society, we first have to go in to define art. Because video games are art and photography is art, and Pokemon Snap is both of those things, and therefore double art. So, the history of art, that's where we're starting. Now, art can be viewed as many things, from fiction to architecture to paintings to more abstract concepts like pop culture or the Roman Empire. All of these things, by some definition of, are art. And all of them share one thing: a goal to memorialize something. In fact, the first instance of art is a cave painting used to memorialize whatever animals were outside this one guy's house on a rainy day. Now, the problem with this, though, is that I have no idea what animals he's drawing. This person's a terrible artist. Andrew, could you help 4K this up for me? Thank you. So we have some horses. What's that on the right? A deer, and then what's in the middle? Ducky from the Land Before Time. Okay, so clearly whoever drew this is a young Earth creationist and knows nothing about history, and therefore cannot be trusted. And that is the problem with paintings. You can't trust them. That is why we have here a drawing of a tree and a picture of a tree. And the problem with the drawing of a tree is this guy could be trying to draw a tree, or maybe he doesn't know what a salmon looks like, and that's what he's going for. Or maybe this is like a political commentary on Abraham Lincoln. I don't know what's going on here. It's confusing. But here we have a picture of a tree, and that's clear and concise. I know what's going on, and it makes sense. That is true art. Everything before that is some weird person's imagination.
So now that we can agree that photography is the perfect form of art, now we have to ask, where did the photography and cameras come from? Well, a quick search on Google shows me that cameras came around in 1021. But how did they get invented? And that, of course, is when noted time traveler William Shakespeare pops up in history. Because in his current future, he didn't have photos or anything like that, but he decided to come back and invent it so that by the time the camera matures enough to our timeline, we could have Pokemon Snap.
So, are you saying much like the Lion King, Pokemon Snap is caused by William Shakespeare?
Well, yeah, everything's caused by William Shakespeare. I thought you knew that.
Thanks, William Shakespeare.
I hear that Shakespearecles was the strongest writer who ever lived. True historical facts. But now that we understand a little bit more about the origin of the camera, the tool that makes the concept of Pokemon Snap even possible, we have to ask the obvious follow-up question, which is, where did Pokemon Snap come from? Where did that idea get cooked up? And believe it or not, the origin for Pokemon Snap lies in a project to develop a Jack and the Beanstalk game for the Nintendo 64. That's right, the game where you're rolling around on rails, photographing all of your favorite adorable Pokemon. Almost didn't have any Pokemon in it. It almost was going to be about Jack and the Beanstalk, that famous classic tale of a dumb kid who bought some weird beans from a dude in an alleyway because, I don't know, he thought it'd be good for his 401k or something. But at the end of the day, this raises some obvious problems because, what do you actually photograph in a Jack and the Beanstalk game? Are you going to photograph cows from this kid's farm? Are you going to photograph that one giant that appears in the story? You certainly aren't going to photograph beanstalks, because have you seen beanstalks? Beanstalks are plants. Plants don't generally move except for when they grow. growing takes time. And I don't know about you, but I ain't got time to watch around and wait for the plants to grow so I can take cooler photographs of them. So, clearly the whole Jack and the Beanstalk idea wasn't working out, so Nintendo had to improvise. They tried adding exciting new features to the game, such as making it compatible with the upcoming N64DD, that is, the hard drive add-on for the Nintendo 64, which would have enabled such exciting new features as would have enabled gameplay experiences such as
not being able to play the game because you don't own a disc drive.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was a weird idea. Fortunately, they scrapped the disc drive, they scrapped the Jack and the Beanstalk, and they focused instead on adding A, Pokemon to the game, and B, exciting new game mechanics.
This is our slide for mechanics. Clearly, we know what we're doing. So, the first mechanic we want to go over that was invented by Pokemon Snap is the idea of an on-rail shooter. As we all know, Pokemon Snap was the first on-rail shooter, and it caused a boom in further on-rail shooter, like the Resident Evil franchise, for instance, where, as you know, you go around and take pictures of zombies while they eat you. That's the game. If you haven't played it and that doesn't sound accurate, you're wrong. That's the game. Unfortunately, like most things, the on-rail shooter saw an escalation in what it would become as a genre, because suddenly, these dinky little cameras, they just weren't doing it, and people had to get big overcompensators like these bad boys. And then someone just went, well, if the camera's big enough, why not just make it a gun? And then suddenly on-rail shooters had guns in them, and that's antithetical to photography. I mean, with the photography, you immortalize the deer. With a gun, you kill it, and then you kill a dinosaur because, hey, let's just go all out, guys. Dinosaurs. Who cares? Violence everywhere. And then we get the new Nintendo Switch game, Knife Fight, which is clearly in this strain of thought, but somehow they decided to make it an augmented reality thing. I don't know what Nintendo was thinking at E3 this year, but there we go. But it's not the most violent game. And definitely not the most violent on-rail shooter. No, the game to hold both most violent game ever and most violent on-rail shooter and, biggest nightmare creator is, of course, Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing of the Dead. A game that has forced me to live in a reality where I have to carry a tactile feedback keyboard with me wherever I go.
Ooh, okay. That had some scary memories for me too, but now we're on to the next mechanic, and I'm of course talking about the speed up function that Pokemon Snap introduced. Before this, we were relegated to a snail's pace in life. We couldn't really go anywhere. We had to walk to the moon. But when they introduced this, then all of a sudden we realized, hey, we could go fast, so we invented NOS, police car chases, like just car chases in general. In fact, even Fast and the Furious really has to call back to Pokemon Snap for inventing it. That's why they picked that color scheme in all of their cars. And then, most important thing is, of course, kart racers. We wouldn't have kart racers without going fast. Because if you ever tried playing a kart racer at 50cc, no, you have to do 150cc.
Yeah, or, mirror mode. Anyway, now the next thing I'm going to say, and this is honestly a contested point, is that Pokemon Snap invented the apple. Now, some of you may be old enough to remember when Pokemon Snap came out. I doubt that's the case. Most of you don't. So you're just going to have to trust me when I say Pokemon Snap came before the apple. With the invention of Pokemon Snap, you could take these weird red fruits and throw them out and have Vulpix enjoy them. And you just sit there and you'd throw the apples and the Vulpix would eat them and they'd have a little dance party and it'd be a beautiful time for you. And people sat there and went, hey, why can't I do this in the real world? And they wanted to start taking these video game experiences and porting them out into the real world in a form of, late 90s augmented reality. So a couple of people got together. They found this old horticulturalist, Luther Burbank or whatever, and had him invent apples. And he did, because Luther Burbank is crazy and he loves horticulture. So he made apples. And we took the apples and we went to the park and we fed them to the one thing at the park, which was that one duck. I don't know if you know this, but the carrying capacity of most parks is about one duck. They cannot support these duck populations. These duck populations exist because people went to the park, brought an apple, offered it to a duck, and the duck went, "Hey, this is cool. I'm going to bring my friends, and we're going to have some kids, and we're all going to hang out here." And suddenly there were hundreds of ducks at the park. But it was fine, because that was more ducks for more people to feed. And humans and ducks, they lived in harmony. That was, of course, until Canada attacked, sending their geese in to invade our parks and chase down our children and honk menacingly at us. I'm very restrictive on my immigration policy. I want to build the wall. Not this wall, though. Not at Mexico. They can come in. That's fine. I don't care about that. I want to stop the Canadians from coming in. Your Justin Trudeau's, your Mounties, your Moose, your Canadian geese. We need to stop them now.
Wait, geese can fly? Since when?
This is... Clayton, I'm sorry. This is my bad. I've been doing all of my goose research by playing Untitled Goose Game. And you can't fly in that game. And honestly, I just played every day to trap that kid that looks kind of like a young Donald Trump in a phone booth, because that is the only catharsis we have in this new reality.
It sounds like you've derived a lot of enjoyment from pestering the poor lad.
I hate you.
I love you too, Max. So this brings us to Pester Balls, which were a core gameplay concept in the original Pokemon Snap, which was utilized for mostly disturbing Pokemon from where they were resting, so you could kind of prod them into moving into a better spot to photograph them at. And unfortunately, as useful as this would have been in the new Pokemon Snap, it is absent, probably because of the increased demand for Pester Balls coming from law enforcement. That's because for exactly the same reason they're useful for dispersing Pokemon, the chemical irritant contained within Pester Balls is super useful for whatever law enforcement purpose you may have, such as breaking up violent rallies or breaking up groups of peaceful protesters with every legal right to be where they're at, or, you know, whatever else you might need them for. But on top of that, in addition, you know, I'm not too upset about getting rid of Pester Balls for that reason, and also because I'm excited for the other core contribution that Pokemon Snap has made to video gaming, which is the invention of branching pathways. That's right. That idea where decisions you make in a game actually affect the outcome and the path you take going forward. That wasn't Telltale. That was invented by Pokemon Snap in the jungle level, where there was that one obnoxious spot on the wall you had to hit just right with a Pester Ball to wake up the Porygon that was camouflaged as the wall for some reason, to reveal a hidden pathway. And if you didn't take that path by hitting that spot on the wall, you didn't go down that branching path. And if you wanted to complete the whole game, looks like somebody's playing River again. Whereas if you did hit that path, you opened up caves, that exclusive level that nobody else who didn't hit that secret spot got to play. Which, I mean, in their defense, is no real big loss, because it had those really creepy mooks in it that didn't really drop anything good. And it also had the absolute worst rare enemies. I mean, Graviton Plate, really? I can literally buy better armor at the arms shop. And whenever you can buy gear instead of it dropping off enemies, you know it is hot garbage.
Clayton, are those Gen 5 Pokemon?
Mercifully, they're not.
Oh, thank goodness. Because they looked like them for a second.
They honestly do. It's part of why Caves is the worst level in the game.
And the next important mechanic that Pokemon Snap had was actually anti-piracy measures. I don't know about you, but if you've ever tried to emulate Pokemon Snap, whenever you took a picture, they would all come out black. See, Nintendo realized that people were going to try to steal their game and emulate it, so they built it so that in a way that you couldn't emulate it. So they're really thinking forward on that one.
They saw how successful Napster was, and they wanted to make sure there wasn't a video game version of Napster. Speaking of relics of the 90s, let's talk about Blockbuster. And just a quick history lesson for you Zoomers out there who may have never seen a Blockbuster. Imagine online video streaming like Netflix, where you get to watch videos that you don't own a physical copy of. Except imagine doing that without the internet. So, you actually have to physically get up and get a physical copy of that movie anyway, because there's no other way that these are distributed. And then on top of that, imagine forking over money on a per unit basis, not to actually buy the movie, but to basically be able to watch it for like a week, and also late fees. But
wait, a week? I thought we only got it for like 2 days.
Depends on how generous your parents were.
That's how generous your parents were. I think they had different rental lengths for video games, if I recall correctly. But in either case, this is more than just an excuse for me to nostalgia trip about my memories in Blockbuster. This is also very relevant because of the tight partnership that Pokemon Snap had with Blockbuster. You see, one of the reasons to go to Blockbuster beyond renting video games was because they had Pokemon Snap kiosks, which were critical because it was one of the only ways that you were able to print out the photos you had in the game. You see, before the internet, you not only couldn't distribute digital movies via the internet, you also couldn't use the non-existent internet to distribute digital photos, which was, problematic if you wanted to look at your photographs, because it turns out the best way to do that back in those olden days was to actually have a physical photograph in your hand. And unfortunately, since not everybody had a Game Boy printer handy, it wasn't always possible to print out your photos. So that's where Blockbuster came in with these handy kiosks where you could bring in your copy of Pokemon Snap, plug it into the kiosk, and print out all your photos. It was a win-win because not only did it help your average gamer get the most out of Pokemon Snap, but it also helped Blockbuster out immensely, as you can see from this graph of Blockbuster stock, where right around the time Pokemon Snap is released, you see that their stock immediately shoots up. If Wall Street bets had been around at that point in time, there would have been rocket emojis for days. Unfortunately for Blockbuster, this turned out to be a very short-lived rally, because after the release of Pokemon Snap 1, you can see that the history of Blockbuster stock is a long, sustained decline. Which is why I'm super happy that Pokemon Snap came out, because I'm in deep with my Blockbuster position, and I really, really hope I don't end up losing more money on this, guys. It's actually really a problem for me. Help, please.
Yeah. So speaking of the new Pokemon Snap, how do we rate it? Well, my honest opinion is it was very nostalgic. Like, it brought around a lot of the same feelings that I had when I played the original. Then when we asked for cute stuff like this, they honestly delivered. They gave us not just one cute thing, but two cute things.
Unfortunately, while I will concede that they gave us plenty of cute things, they also gave us plenty of not so cute things, like these awful, hideous, making me physically ill right now just from having to look at them and be reminded of their existence, Gen 5 Pokemon, because Nintendo will not stop trying to advance the obviously false fan fiction narrative that these abominations are somehow Pokemon. It really is disgusting. It's poisoning the minds of our youth. And I, for one, will not stand for it.
Clayton, we were talking about Pokemon Snap 2, not our 5th Gen Isn't Pokemon panel.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess, now's a good time for me to give at least my verdict for Pokemon Snap 2. And, hideously flawed for its transgressions as it is, I give Pokemon Snap a 7.8 out of 10. Too much Bouffalant.
So now that we've rated Pokemon Snap 2, it was a good game. It sold well. We gave it a 7.8 out of 10, which is the same score we gave Citizen Kane. 7.8 out of 10, too much Rosebud. We need to talk about where we want to go with Pokemon Snap franchise going forward, because ultimately what we think Nintendo needs to do is spin the Pokemon Snap franchise out and then flesh it out the same way they did the Mystery Dungeon series, except good. So we're going to propose 3 new Pokemon Snap games. And the first one is actually gonna be a demake. Now, Nintendo has not given the Wii U love. It's trying to forget the consoles. They've been taking all of their old Wii U games, porting them up to Switch. Any good game for the Wii U has a Switch release now. there's no reason to own a Wii U. That is until the Wii U demake of Pokemon Snap 2, wherein we're going to make this game so worth it that you will want to buy a Wii U just to play it. This isn't just for the 5 Wii U people who don't own a Switch yet. This is for gaming history. And this is going to revolutionize gaming and photography as we know it through one little feature. Andrew, show the feature. That's right, the Wii U gamepad. The Wii U gamepad is unironically the best way to play a photography game. When it comes down to it, on the Switch, you can sit there and use your joystick and move around and zoom in and zoom out. That's lame. It's all about taking the Wii U pad, holding it around, moving it around the screen to take photos, using that as your lens to the TV that is your landscape. This will be an immersive experience. And I cannot think of a better character to ground this experience in than easily the most developed video game character ever made. Like, Shakespeare wishes he could write someone as good as this. That is, of course, Waluigi. Now, little known fact, Clayton and I own the rights to Waluigi. We won them in a tennis game against Shigeru Miyamoto and Masahiro Sakurai.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So we are the reason Waluigi has not been announced in Smash yet. But that's just because we are in prolonged contractual debate over his moveset. We think it's not cool enough. I will not rest until his final Smash is literally just a DDR like screen thing, and they won't give it to us for some reason.
I, for one, think that his up air should be a downward spike, and his down air should be an upward spike.
Of course, it's Waluigi. But as a show of good faith to Nintendo, we will let them use Waluigi in Pokemon Snap 2. We think that will drum up interest for him when he's finally DLC. And also, I mean, we're not doing anything with him right now anyway. I might as well put him in.
All right. Well, in our next game, I'd like to ask one thing to Nintendo, and that's to stop including 5th Gen Abominations. But we know Nintendo won't listen to this. They haven't listened to us since Gen 6, so we think we're going to propose something a little different. So this way Nintendo can actually include them. We say, do a callback to the original rail shooters. Not this one, these ones. And that's, of course, give us a gun and let us hunt these abominations. And what system would be better for using a gun than one that supports the Super Scope, the truly perfect way to hunt Pokemon? So, yes, that does mean this is going to be released for the NES. And this, I'm not saying this is going to happen soon. Like, it took 20 years for them to develop Pokemon Snap 2, so I expect this one to take another 20 years in the pipeline.
In the meantime, no AAA release would ever be complete without a bad mobile port. And the thing is, you know, as sympathetic as I am to upholding such proud traditions, I think a game as nostalgically important for the greatest generation, talking millennials, not the actual, you know, greatest generation.
No, we are the actual greatest generation. They're just
yeah. Okay, well, fair enough. We will not stand for a bad mobile port of an iconic part of our childhood, which is why I am pleased to announce that the mobile port for Pokemon Snap 2 will be released on the one piece of hardware that is capable of delivering the experience it deserves. And that is the original Game Boy Color. That's right, the Game Boy Color, known for being a computational powerhouse capable of displaying sustained 4K resolution at 120 frames per second. Nay, I think it might even be 360 frames per second for extra cool points. That being said, it is also capable of delivering fully immersive surround sound through its excellent speaker system, and has integration with the Game Boy camera, meaning you can actually use the get the same Wii U-like experience with it without having to use a Fisher-Price iPad. That being said, we did have to make some concessions to get Pokemon Snap 2 to fit on the Game Boy Color, such as the fact that it is not actually in color, it is in black and white. But any photography snob will tell you that that's actually a good thing, that black and white just intrinsically increases the artistic value of literally any photograph. So this is just a feature as far as I'm concerned. But it won't stop there. To truly get the original 90s experience, Pokemon Snap 2 will have to have deep integration with Blockbuster. And that's not just because I need to be bailed out of my terrible Blockbuster position. This is also because we need to bring the kiosks back. We need to bring back those lines of happy people just waiting to get their photographs printed out.
Line cons of happy people, if you will.
Oh God, I miss line cons so much. It's honestly the worst part of the pandemic is not waiting in line to get into conventions. It's so happy that's going to be back. So unfortunately, though, there's only one Blockbuster left. It is in Bend, Oregon. And not everyone can afford plane tickets to Bend, Oregon. Makes sense. People are tight on cash. So to support the average American worker, gamer, NEET, whatever you are, as long as you don't have any money, we're here for you. We also demand that Nintendo bring back the Game Boy printer so that people can print out their photographs they take in Pokemon Snap in the privacy of their own homes, in their own mother's basements, where they can print out their photographs using the quality that they deserve, which is on real, crisp, thermal paper, the same kind you use to get your receipts from Safeway. That's the only way to do it. I know Nintendo tried to emulate this experience with that new printer they came out with for Pokemon Snap 2, and it's all well and good. It's nice to be able to hold a physical copy of the photographs that you take, but unfortunately, thanks to the unfortunate and widely known technical limitations of the Switch as compared to the Game Boy Color, they just couldn't match the original experience. So, Nintendo, do us a favor. Stop giving us poor approximations of what we know and love, and just give us the original product. It's how we're going to keep this industry alive. And also, it helps us keep our bank accounts alive. Not just for my Blockbuster position, but Max.
Now, some of you may accuse us of nostalgia tripping. That's true. We're always nostalgia tripping. Some of you may be more discerning and think that we are actually just trying to inflate the value of older video game consoles such that I can finally sell mine at profit. And the answer to that is yes, we're doing that. That is why we want the Pokemon Snap franchise to continue. It's so that I can get more money for my SNES. I want $1,000 for my Super Scope. I don't know why that's too much to ask for. Anyway, someone buy my Super Scope for $1,000. We'll put you in the special thanks. Speaking of special thanks, we'd like to thank whoever buys my Super Scope. But we'd also like to thank Mavis Beacon for teaching us everything there is to know about zombie killing and proper typing etiquette.
I'd like to thank Vin Diesel for Iron Giant and just everything else he does.
Yeah.
I would like to thank Jackie Chan. I have no idea what he did in relation to Pokemon Snap, but knowing his other work on the hit single Jackie Chan Adventures, it has to be super cool.
Yeah. So, KinYooBiCon, thank you so much for watching this panel. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at 5th Gen, not PKMN, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/5thGen isn't Pokemon. We're also on YouTube, but honestly, it was like putting two socials was already too many. So, just keep Googling things until you find us. I'm sure it'll work out. Have a great convention, everybody.
Thanks for watching.
Enjoy the con. Peace.